Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this, our first Cinematic Science Lab experiment. Please sit back, relax, or fold laundry, have it on in the background. You know, whatever you do when you watch YouTube videos. Main thing is, enjoy. Welcome to the Cinematic Science Lab, the new show where we take Hollywood's most outrageous moments and put them under the microscope. And for our very first experiment, we're looking at a question that's plagued scientists, school teachers, and elderly aunts for years. Could a teenage boy really make sticky white fluid in his bedroom?
You can't do that, huh?
No?
How on earth does that even...
Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. Look.
Throughout Spider-Man's various storylines, his web shooting has always been the signature move, an iconic combination of superhero cool and scientific genius. Sometimes these webs are organic, sometimes they are mechanical, but at its core, it has always been his invention. And so for our experiment in the CSL lab, we are focusing on the most DIY version of all, where Peter Parker builds his own synthetic web fluid from scratch.
Tally-ho.
So here's what we want to know. Is this remotely possible? What would this stuff actually be made of? Could you really cook it up in secret without your aunt noticing? And even if you managed that miracle, could you actually use it to swing from rooftop to rooftop across the New York City skyline? So strap in, because we're about to get into some surprisingly real science and some absolutely ridiculous movie logic.
Go! Go! Go, Web, go!
All right, let's talk about the star of the show. Not Peter Parker himself, but his webbing. Spider silk is genuinely one of nature's most incredible materials. We're talking about protein-based fibers made up of amino acid chains, mainly glycine and alanine, that create this perfect combination of stretch and strength. Now, not all spider silk is created equal, and this is important. Spiders actually make up to 7 different types of silk, depending on what they need it for. But if you're going for superhero grade material, you want the heavy hitters, the orb-weaving spiders. These guys produce what's called dragline silk for the main structure of their webs. This stuff has a tensile strength of around 1.1 GPa and elasticity that rivals nylon. So basically, a fancy way of measuring how much force something can handle before it snaps. Now, compare that to other spiders. Your ground spiders or trapdoor spiders, they make strong silk for sure, but it's not built for the kind of dynamic loads you'd get swinging through Manhattan in rush hour. Now, here's where things get interesting. Real scientists have actually been trying to crack this code for years. The problem? You can't just farm spiders for silk, because they're cannibals. Put a bunch of orb weavers together and you don't get a silk factory, you get an arachnid fight club. So here is where companies like Bolt Threads step in. These guys in California figured out how to genetically modify yeast to produce spider silk proteins. They basically brew it like beer, extract the silk proteins and spin them into fibers. They call their prototype material microsilk, and even got it into fashion collaborations with Stella McCartney and Patagonia, which is impressive, but still not load-bearing superhero stuff. And here's the kicker. Bolt Threads has raised over $400 million in funding, employs dozens of PhD scientists, and operates out of state-of-the-art facilities in Silicon Valley. Peter Parker has, a microscope, soldering iron, maybe access to his high school chemistry lab after hours? Look, creating synthetic spider silk is a full industrial process. Doing this alone in a bedroom is like trying to build a starship with Legos and blind hope. So could Parker have figured this out? Yeah, no.
Oh no.
Okay, so let's say Peter really is as smart as the comics make him out to be. What would he actually need to genetically engineer spider silk? Well, thanks to the internet, where else, here's what he'd need to genetically replicate spider silk. First, he'd need DNA sequences from orb-weaving spiders, specifically genes that encode major ampulate spider roles, such as MASP1 and MASP2, the proteins that give dragline silk its incredible strength to weight ratio. He'd also need a host organism to express those genes, typically E. coli yeast or even genetically modified silkworms. Then a vector like plasmid to insert the silk genes into the host. He'd need some form of nutrient media to culture the organism, throw in a bioreactor to grow the modified microbes at scale, and then he'll need a centrifuge to separate the proteins, chromatography columns to purify them, and a wet spinning or electrospinning setup to actually spin those proteins into usable fibre. This isn't mixing chemicals in a beaker. This is an entire biotech production line. And even if Peter somehow nailed every single step, he'd run into one more brutal reality. Spider silk proteins are incredibly unstable. Allow the pH or temperature to shift even slightly, your entire batch turns into an expensive protein smoothie. In the real world, companies like Craig Biocraft in Michigan and AM Silk in Germany are doing exactly this kind of work right now. But these companies have decades of R&D, millions in funding, clean room facilities, and teams of PhDs, and they're still not making skyscraper swinging material. Peter's supposedly doing all of this while Aunt May is knocking on his door asking if he's done his homework. So either Peter Parker is the greatest biotech prodigy in human history, or he's got a secret protein purification lab hiding under his bed.
Peter Parker.
Maybe genetic engineering is too complicated. But what if Peter tried to make a synthetic version instead? Fake spider silk using off-the-shelf chemicals? Well, it turns out chemists have actually tried this. Researchers have experimented with polymer-based analogues that mimic the properties of spider silk. Materials like nylon 6, Kevlar, polyethylene, or polyurethane elastomers. Granted, they're not true spider silk, but some can get surprisingly close to that stretch strength combination under the right conditions. So, to synthesize anything close to functional webbing, Peter would need monomer sources like caprolactam for nylon synthesis, a polycondensation reactor setup, strong acids or catalysts, we're talking sulfuric acid and phosphorus pentachloride, and a spinning system to form continuous fibre. Think miniature melt spinner or wet spinner. Oh, and he'll most likely need some high temperature control vacuum systems, industrial ventilation, and probably several fire extinguishers. Okay, creating artificial silk in a bedroom isn't just unrealistic, it's dangerously illegal in at least 3 countries. But even if old Webhead did manage to make his miracle fibre, he's only halfway there, because now he's got to launch it. Spider-Man's web shooter isn't just some fancy squirt gun, it's a miniaturized fluid propulsion system that fires liquid silk at high velocity with pinpoint accuracy from the wrist. and it has to do this repeatedly, on demand, and without jamming. Here's what that would actually require. To launch fluid that can harden mid-air and support a 160-pound teenager mid-swing, you need pressure. We're talking at least 130 to 150 psi. That's fire extinguisher levels of pressure. And Peter's wrist-mounted shooter does this repeatedly in split-second bursts. Now, let's talk ammo. In most versions of the story, Peter carries small fluid cartridges about the size of AAA batteries. If each web shot uses 10 to 20 millilitres of fluid, he'd need to carry dozens of these things just for a short patrol around the neighbourhood. But here's the real problem. This fluid has to harden on contact with air, maintain strength over dozens of metres, and not clog the nozzle. That's a chemical engineering nightmare. You'd need a shear thinning fluid that behaves differently under pressure, some kind of catalyst reaction triggered by air contact, and possibly some form of microencapsulation technology to keep everything stable. All this technology has to fit into something Peter can wear on his wrist without looking like he's got a small artillery piece strapped to his arm. This housing has to be corrosion resistant, as those solvents will eat through most metals. It has to handle high pressure without exploding. It needs precise mechanical triggers, often seen as a double tap of the middle and ring finger. And it has to be tough enough to handle the massive forces generated when Spider-Man swings. When Spider-Man changes direction mid-swing, he's generating dynamic loads of several hundred kilograms. That force transfers directly into his arm and whatever's attached to it. So, unless the web shooter is somehow integrated with serious forearm bracing, Peter's wrist bones would shatter every time he caught a building ledge. Okay, yes, Parker's genetic makeup has been altered by the radioactive or genetically modified spider bite, so perhaps we can just excuse this on superhuman terms. But in all seriousness, he'd still be torn apart. So could a teenager realistically build this? If he's got a genius IQ, access to industrial equipment, an engineering degree, superhuman reflexes, and Aunt May never asks questions about the weird chemical smells coming from his room? Sure, maybe. But in reality, you'd be lucky if you didn't blow your hand off during the first test. Now, if there's one universal truth about the internet, it's this. If something ridiculous happens in a movie, someone will try it in real life. And Spider-Man's web slinging? Oh yeah, people have definitely tried it. Some folks have actually gone after the synthetic spider silk angle and built web shooters. YouTuber The Action Lab tried working with actual dragline proteins produced in genetically modified bacteria. He didn't make web fluid, but he did show just how fragile and impossible to work with this stuff is, even in laboratory conditions. Hacksmith Industries were one of the closest to actual engineering glory, and these guys are serious about their movie prop engineering. They built a wrist-mounted launcher using compressed air to fire high tensile steel cables attached to a motorized winch. It technically worked in the sense that it launched and retracted. It required an external power pack the size of a backpack, but it weighed over 15 pounds, so imagine strapping a bowling ball to your arm. Then you've got the Reddit and TikTok crowd, mixing glue, rubber cement, dental floss, and duct tape, in which can only be described as chemical fan fiction. Real spider silk just can't be mass produced affordably, and synthetic alternatives don't have the right properties for human load bearing. Swinging between buildings at 30 to 50 miles per hour generates multiple G's of force. Without superhuman strength, your joints would dislocate, your muscles would tear, and your spine would compress like an accordion.
You got heart, kid. Where you from?
Queens?
Let's set aside the real-world impossibility for a minute and focus on the movies themselves. Even if Parker somehow managed to create miracle web fluid in his bedroom, would swinging around the city actually be survivable? In every Spider-Man movie, we see Peter launch himself off buildings, swing through the air like he's auditioning for Cirque du Soleil, then land perfectly on a street lamp. It looks effortless. In reality, the G-forces alone would wreck him. Let's say Spider-Man weighs about 165 pounds. When he swings from a building and suddenly changes direction, he can experience anywhere from 4 to 10 G's of force. That's up to 1,650 pounds of load going through his arms, shoulders, and spine in a fraction of a second. But Spider-Man doesn't stop at solo swinging. He regularly catches falling civilians, grown adults, sometimes entire vehicles, all while mid-air. Catching a falling car with webbing would be like trying to stop a freight train with a rubber band. The deceleration forces alone would be lethal for everyone involved. They say with great power comes great responsibility, but apparently not basic physics.
Any more bright ideas?
I got a few. Yeah.
Look, we boffins at the CSL lab are not trying to ruin everyone's fun here. There's a reason Spider-Man's swinging scenes are some of the most iconic in cinema history. It's the perfect combination of physics-defying spectacle and wish fulfillment. Peter survives because his enhanced strength and durability let him handle extreme loads. His spider sense gives him perfect timing and spatial awareness. His superhuman reflexes allow split-second course corrections, and plot armor prevents any truly catastrophic failures. But strip away those powers, your first swing is your last swing, assuming you even survive the launch. Here's the thing though, even knowing all the science that makes this impossible, those swinging scenes are superhero magic. There's something about the freedom, the grace, the pure joy of movement that transcends all the physics problems. And that's what great cinema does. It makes you believe the impossible, even when your brain knows better. So, could Spider-Man actually make his web fluid in real life? If Peter Parker had PhD-level biotech expertise, access to millions of dollars in equipment, a team of research scientists, and about 5 years of R&D time, he might be able to create a prototype that sort of works for very specific applications. But the bedroom chemistry project that lets him swing through Manhattan like it's just another Tuesday? That's pure movie magic.
That was so good.
Thanks for watching the Cinematic Science Lab. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Spider-Man and his webbing, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments what movie science you'd like us to tackle next. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and whatever you do, don't try this stuff at home.